Well, good morning and welcome to the Art of Fire. And here's Foster. Good morning,
Hey,
Foster.
good morning. How are you today, folks? It's nice to have you with us. We're glad that you are, and we'll get underway here in just a few moments. We're just getting things tweaked, and I think that the color to it, I'll go ahead and pick up the piece of color, and we'll go from there.
All right. So Foster will be making a fan base again. And this will be a really cool piece. And you can see that it's got a shiny surface to it. And he's going to be using, I think he's going to be using glue again. Frit next to it that gets sprinkled on. And those lines you see are where trails of clear glass is laid on over top of the gold frit. And it causes it to separate a little bit. And then when we subject that to what we call is a little starved for oxygen, it causes that lustrous finish and allows the background color to shine through. So what color do we have as a base coat today, Foster?
This is a piece of, go ahead and pick up some iris gold over the surface. We'll pick that up, and then I'm going to put a wrap of clear glass in a random fashion over the parazon on the end of the pipe, and that will melt that and push the iris gold color aside, which will help with the design element, the visual design element on the actual piece of glass. Not the shape, but the visual side of things. So I'm going to come over and go ahead and marver this up.
All right, so he's got the piece of black on the end of his iron, and it looks bright orange right now because of all the heat. It's also quite soft, so he's able to roll it on the metal tabletop, the marver, shape it a little bit. He's going to tap the tip of it on the iron just to cool that a little. Some glass, when he blows in and traps the air, you can see that start to inflate and become much more round. Now he'll marver it again just to get a nice continuous line from the pipe onto the glass, and it's time to let it cool just a bit. So we have to cool these so that we don't make the bubble collapse. So this is a really cool thing about our benches here. I'm going to move Foster's iron up the bench, and now I'm going to walk away. So what you see in a glass studio, and we'll look at it a little bit from this angle, and that helps in letting the pipe roll toward the end. Why, you might ask, would a glass blower want to do that? I'm glad you asked, even if you didn't. So when Foster began doing this, require a few moments to be able to leave the piece alone and go over and gather some glass for a punty. So he found that by having a bench rail that is inclined like that, he was able to push the pipe up the bench a little bit. It would roll down and stop at those two wood screws, and that gave him time to go take a gather, shape a putty, and come back and do his attachment. So now he's got his first gather of clear over the black. He's going to bring this back to the bench and use a tool we call a block. It's a wooden cup on a handle, typically made of cherry wood or some other fruit wood, which has a nice dense grain, and this allows the glass to. So we all paused a moment because we heard a little bit of a drop in the noise in here and didn't know what that was related to.
Yeah, what is it?
I don't know. I don't know if we didn't lose air.
We're shutting back some of the equipment
So
today to keep it.
that always gets everybody's attention in a glass studio if all of a sudden the sound changes drastically.
And you heard it?
And I heard it, and I'm deaf. I got one functional ear and a hearing aid in that, okay? But I detected it too. So anyway, hi Liz from Germantown, welcome aboard. And it looks like we got 6 others of you out there. Go ahead and identify yourself, say hello. So anyway, everything seems to be working all right, but when we do lose electricity in here, the propane will keep flowing, but the air stops, and that can cause problem. And it's a very distinctive sound, or a distinctive loss of sound, and that gets everybody's attention. All right, so Foster has blocked the glass, Well, hello, Jennifer's Craft and Creations from England. What part of England, Jennifer? We've seen Tommy's workshop before. We've had Steve Ellis in. We've got several other people and Joanna from London. So I'd like to find out how much further we've expanded our coverage in the UK. All right, so Foster is now ready to pick up his second gather of glass, clear glass from our furnace. It holds about 450 pounds. Okay. And Antoinette from Franklinville, New Jersey. Well, welcome aboard, Frank, from Franklinville. So he's got that clear glass now. You can see it surrounding the original gather of color and a little bit of clear. And now is when he will dip the iron into the gold frit. Doncaster, South Yorkshire. Thank you, Jennifer. I think, I can't remember if it's Tommy or Steve, or perhaps both are in the Yorkshire area. Okay, so he's got the gold on there, and in just a moment, Josh or Todd will run over and pick up a gather of clear glass to drape it on. See, that was a subtle reminder from your friendly cameraman. Oh, say what? Okay, so Foster's getting a lot of gold on that, but he's not going to melt it in and reheat it right now. He's going to come to the bench, and Josh will present the newly gathered clear glass, and Foster will drape it on. He's going to do a random trail. He's just going to rotate the iron and let the glass fall all over the place. And notice that it's a fairly thin line, okay? It's not real large. It's going to be really delicate, but he's able to get this design throughout. And now he'll take care of heating that all up. So that layer of clear that was trailed onto the gold has spread the gold apart, and so that will allow the interior color, the black in this case, to show through later on. So right now he's heating it up. He's going to lock that into place, perhaps use the marver, and then we'll get continued on from there. So I hate to sound like a nag, but will he be using the propane torch?
He will not be.
He will not be. We're not going to reduce this?
He is going to reduce it,
Okay.
but we're going to reduce it in a little different of a way today.
We're going to do it in the glory hole? That's why we took the shroud down. I showed up today and one of the metal shrouds was down, and I kind of wondered what the heck. What number for the gold color? It looks like a 0.
It's the
Double
K,
zero.
yeah, double zero,
Double 0? Okay.
K218.
Yeah, that's Antoinette asking. So here's how we have it packaged in the studio. K218 is the number from the color manufacturer, in this case Kugler Color, and the 218 is their Iris Gold, which is a really good reducing color. Hello, Brian Anderson from Orlando, Florida. Okay, so back to, the reduction. We started talking about that. So normally, there's a sheet of metal here, kind of protecting everything from the heat. But what will happen later on is instead of using the propane torch, which is oxygen starved, Foster will use his glory hole and starve it of oxygen for the reduction process. He's marvering the tip or the end of the piece right now. That cools it, shapes it a little bit, and now when he blows, it will not expand fully down there. Let's take a look. See how it still has that conical shape? At the bottom, most of the inflation is at the top or middle. He's using his metal blades, the jacks, to cut a constriction just off the blowing iron. This is where the piece will separate from the pipe later on. That piece of newspaper acts just like the, here we go. He's going to blow that out some. The piece of newspaper acts just like the metal table does in as far as taking away a little bit of heat. So we like to keep a nice reservoir of thick glass down in the bottom of the piece for future development. All right, so now he's got a sphere with a jack line. And this is how about 80 to 85% of our pieces start off. And then we do something with that sphere. In this case, we will marver the tip a little bit, and notice it's elongating, and he'll probably blow this out some now. That's the main purpose in cooling the bottom, so the inflation takes place above that point. So let's watch. When he goes to horizontal with the blowpipe, he gets more of a spherical shape. He's going to refine the jack line right now just by squeezing down and also sloping the blades out a little bit. Construction of that jack line is really important when it comes time for the transfer. Alrighty, so now he's got his sphere with the jack line in it. He's going to heat that sphere up and he'll elongate it. So we can use gravity, we can use centrifugal force, we can wish and hope and pray, but that usually doesn't work as well as letting gravity and heat do the work or swinging the piece. Watch how he hangs this down when he first comes out, and you'll see a little bit of elongation before there's any swinging or spinning around. That's the action of heat combined with gravity. Now a gentle swing, notice he's not going haywire with it. He's just swinging it out nice and easy, but he follows it around with his eyes to make sure of the length. When he gets that or approaching the length, he'll go back in for a reheat. If he wants it a little bit longer, he'll take a brief reheat, swing it out some more. He's heating the lower 3/4 of the vessel right now. The top of it, near the blowpipe, is still a little dark, you'll see. That allows it to elongate out where the glass is hot. Because we all know that hot glass moves and cold glass don't. All right, he's checking it with the calipers now to check the length. And he's going to use the paper pegs, we call them, or they're actually just cardboard tubes, to straighten the body a little, shape it. They don't steal near as much heat as the metal blades do. And in just a moment, he's going to hand this off to Josh. Good morning, Joanna. Welcome aboard. And good morning, Bridget. Okay, so Josh now will flash the piece. And this is just some momentary heat, 3 or 4 seconds. And then he takes it back out of the heat while Foster is over yonder gathering the glass for a foot. Foster will take 2 gathers over there just to get the right amount that he wants for the foot. And then as he comes back to the bench, Josh will go over and meet him. So he's got a little blob of glass on the end of the pipe. The shape of it doesn't matter too much right now, but he's going to use his jacks to cut a little line near the pipe that will help it separate from the iron. And that's not a blowing iron, it's a solid iron. When he gets that line cut, he'll keep the piece balanced. Notice how his eyes are right on the glass. He's focused right there. He'll drop it onto the bottom of the vessel and clip it off. Josh will present it to him, and Foster will grab what we call the foot boards. 2 pieces of wood hinged together with some fabric. He flattens it, and now he pinches it between the 2 pieces of wood and squeezes. There's a notch in the piece of wood that's closest to the blowpipe, and that's what's helping to form the foot. Once he squeezes that down nice and thin, he's then able to go back and reheat it, and he'll finish shaping the foot.
I think it's important to express to people how hot and muggy it is today.
It is very hot and muggy. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's going to be miserable by the end of the day. But we're here anyway for fun and games. He's using the paddle to press it against the bottom and flatten it a little bit, but that particular paddle has a nice curvature to it, which he's put in there at the top edge of the foot to give it that graceful curve. Now he flattens it to make sure that it'll sit on the tabletop even, and he hands off to Josh once again. So now it's time for the transfer. The making of the punty. Foster will get a single gather of glass on an iron over there. Josh again will flash the piece, and he keeps his eye on Foster just to see. Yeah, it probably is cooler and less muggy in Florida than it is here today. All right, so Foster will shape up the punty on the Marver. When we do this, we don't want a lot of glass hanging off the end of the piece. If we did, it'd be like a long hot finger wiggling around whenever we reheated the piece. So we only go a little ways with that glass. Foster will go to the bench, pick up his file, dip it in the water, and now he'll place the pipe to the center of the foot. And if it doesn't quite line up with the center, he can press down with the file. Then he'll score the neck with the wet file, tap the pipe, and it breaks free. And there we go with a transfer. Way to go. That's the kind of breath-holding moment for most glass blowers. And you can see that he attached that putty fairly hot. It's wiggling around like a fish on a line over there. You do a lot of deep sea fishing, Foster? No, okay, all righty. So he's heating the upper reaches of the vessel now. That was cold enough to fracture. It takes a little while to reheat. Once the piece stops moving around so drastically on the putty, he has to keep on flashing now. So that clear glass that's on the foot, he doesn't want that to get cold. We need to keep the temperature of this well above 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit so it doesn't crack. So that's why he puts the piece back into the glory hole while he's still continuing to heat the upper reaches. And before going to the bench, the last thing he does is take a good flash to leave enough heat on it for his adventures at the bench. So he'll have about a minute or so to play with it, shape the glass. If he needs to trim the lip, he'll do that. Any of that sort of stuff. And there's that heat, and you can see that the concentration of heat is at the opening out at the end of the vessel. So he'll use his jacks to open that diameter a little bit. If he chooses, he can trim it. If it's not necessary, he just keeps opening a bit. And here he comes with the shears. Notice the red glow in the glass. That allows him to know that there's plenty of heat and he can just trim the glass right off. Now there's still plenty of heat out in the tip of the piece, but he's also focusing his attention on the foot and the rest of the body, because if he sees that start to cool off too much, he's in trouble. So you have to be able to expand your focus beyond what you're immediately working on. You got to keep an awareness of the rest of it. So now he's got that in there. He's warming the whole thing up. And they're adjusting the temperatures on the glory hole. That's what he and Josh are talking about right now. So we'll let them work their magic and adjust the temperatures to where he wants for working the piece. Now when you see him go in like that and stay a lot longer with the piece, it probably indicates he wanted the glory hole a little bit hotter. He had to stay in there longer to drive the heat in the body. But this is an adjustment he makes on the fly. So he's got his heat throughout the vessel, concentrated in the top. He'll flatten the lip with the back of the jacks or the strap, the hinge area. And the steam cone now inflates the vessel for him. The steam cone is also made of tight grain cherry wood. It's a solid construction. And when you put the wet wood inside the hot glass, then it just blows it on out. The steam pushes the glass aside. And you can start to see some of the reduction taking place in the vessel now.
It would have helped if I turned it the right way. So it wasn't corner. Actually less than a corner.
Well, somebody commented something about cat. And yes, we had a cat sighting. But you want to have some real fun when we do demonstrations for elementary school groups and the cats come around. All bets are off. Nobody pays any attention to the glass blower or the narrator. It's all about the cat. Now he'll begin to open the vessel up here, open the lip, and then in a few moments he'll be getting the heat and everything set so that he can form the fan. So take a look at this shape right here, this round cylinder, and look at the finished product here. And you can kind of see where he'll be placing his jacks to make that nice squared edge and pull it apart into the shape of a fan.
I mean, like, it burns out like it gets that kind of greenish gold color like I got on mine.
He's got it nice and hot. It's moving. You can see that. And this will allow him just the temperatures he needs to start shaping. Let's watch it from the end over here. As he takes his jacks with the blades an inch or two apart, he simply lifts and then turns to the other side, lifts, and you can notice him sweeping down along the space in between to give himself a nice straight line. And once he gets that, he'll head back over to the glory hole. So it looks like the adjustments they were doing on the furnace was not as much temperature as it was air. You can see he's got that reduction induced luster to the piece right now. So we didn't have to put a propane torch onto it. We just used an oxygen-starved flame, and he's got a really nice shape on it. So he'll come back. He's got that all shaped up. One last pass with the jacks. Here's a little oval with a pull on the hot glass. It moves. Hot glass will move. He can straighten that out to give himself a nice line there, and then he'll go back for one more flash before taking it off. So he'll take a flash here. Josh is waiting with the accoutrements. He's got the insulated glove. There's the piece. Beautiful. And you can see where the black is coming through, where the clear separated the gold. Foster will get the glove on. He'll use a butter knife to chip around the punty joint. This is simply to cool it. He certainly hopes it doesn't break here because it would go straight to the floor. After he weakens that joint a little bit, Josh will hold the iron. Foster will hit the pipe with a hammer handle above with his free hand and catch it. And there he goes. So now it's off to the annealer for the longest part of the glass blowing process. The annealing takes, it takes about 8 hours, but that piece will stay in the annealer till the end of the day at 900 degrees and then come down slowly overnight. So, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Foster.
Hey.
Really beautiful.
Thank you for being with us, and you have a great day. We look forward to seeing you on Facebook.
Yep, join
There you
us in
go.
about 5 minutes for Facebook Live. You can go to the Art of Fire Contemporary Glass Studio for our show, which will start at 11 a.m. Eastern, which is about 5 minutes from now, and we'll have some more glass to make. So long.